Imagine the NASA rover. Perseverance is discovering something incredible. Signs of ancient life on Mars. But that's not all. You know what's the most amazing part? Researchers have come across evidence that could suggest extraterrestrial civilizations once inhabited the red planet. How could these findings change our understanding of the universe? Let's dive into what makes this story so intriguing and exciting. Waterfalls and black rings. In 2024, NASA's Perseverance rover detected possible traces of ancient life in Martian rocks, prompting a mixture of excitement and cautious optimism among researchers. The rock formation, Chiawa Falls, resembles an arrowhead and shows chemical markers suggesting microorganisms existed billions of years ago when Mars was wetter. Organic materials, crucial to biochemistry, and calcium sulfate veins, indicating past water flow, have been found. The rover also detected tiny spots with dark rings resembling a leopard skin pattern, and also veins of calcium sulfate, which indicate the presence of water that once flowed through this rock. On top of that, the device found numerous tiny spots about 0.04 inches in diameter, each surrounded by dark rings that look like a leopard skin pattern. These rings contain iron and phosphate, which on Earth are typically associated with fossilized remains of microorganisms. These spots turned out to be a real surprise. On our planet, such features in rock formations are often associated with the fossils of ancient microbes, emphasized David Flannery, an astrobiologist and a member of the Perseverance research team from Queensland University of Technology in Australia. Chiawa Falls is located at the edge of an ancient riverbed known as the Neritva Valley, which scientists believe was shaped by water flowing into the Jezero crater. The clay deposits containing organic material likely settled in the valley and hardened over time, forming the Chiawa Falls structure. Calcium sulfate in the rocks. The second influx of water could have led to the formation of calcium sulfate veins and black ring-like structures. However, the observed characteristics of the rock alone do not serve as absolute proof of ancient microbial life on Mars. Researchers are eager to bring samples from Chiawa Falls back to Earth for detailed analysis. The Mars Sample Return Program is facing a number of challenges, including a budget increase to $11 billion. NASA is looking at several simplified options and has allocated $1.5 million to 7 companies to explore this issue. The rock known as Chiawa Falls has a chemical composition and structure that could have arisen from the activity of ancient microorganisms. However, we can't completely rule out the possibility that these features formed without biological processes. We subjected this rock to lasers and X-rays, capturing images of it almost around the clock and from every possible angle. Scientifically speaking, Perseverance did everything it could, commented Ken Farley, a scientist on the Perseverance project. Further research is required to fully verify the hypothesis, but the features of the rock that were discovered already represent a significant step forward in the study of Mars and the search for traces of life on this planet. We've never seen all 3 of these signs at the same time on Mars before, noted Morgan Cable, a specialist from the Perseverance team. The study of the Neritva riverbed was worth it because we came across something previously unseen, which will provide our scientists with a vast database for further research. Nicola Fox, the deputy head of NASA's Science Missions Division, emphasized, "There's a chance that the calcium sulfate formed in the rock due to high temperatures and lifeless conditions, like from volcanic activity. But despite that, the features found in the rock have already made an important contribution to the study of Mars and the search for signs of life there." Water on Mars, that's a well-known fact. Back in the 1970s, dried-up riverbeds were spotted on the surface of Mars. Similar formations that look like traces of liquid flows can also be found on the Moon, and some of them can even be seen with binoculars or a small telescope. It's believed that lava flowed on the Moon. As for Mars, doubts about the nature of these formations were quickly dispelled. It was specifically about water. This was evidenced not only by the nature of the riverbeds themselves, but also by numerous other signs. For example, in areas where water is thought to have flowed, the terrain looked cracked, as if it had dried out. It was initially thought that underground ice melts periodically on Mars, and the age of these riverbeds is relatively young. Now it's known that this formation is billions of years old. The Perseverance rover was deliberately landed in the Jezero crater area, where ancient rivers were believed to have flowed. The site was chosen from orbit and remotely. Just recently, the data confirmed that the landing site was the right choice. The evidence was gathered directly by the rover itself. In the depths of the atmosphere, Mars' atmosphere, while extremely thin, does exist, and its effects are noticeable. Winds gradually smooth out the planet's terrain, while sand covers ancient layers of soil. Mars often experiences strong dust storms that can even be seen from Earth. Back in the 19th century, astronomers noticed that the usually distinct surface details of the planet would sometimes disappear, and it became clear that dust storms were the cause. The Perseverance rover is equipped with a ground-penetrating radar. Every 10 meters, the rover sends out pulses beneath the surface and records the reflected signals. Now there's no doubt. The soil shows the rover moved along a dried-up lake bottom. Planetary scientists are thrilled. The river's delta was in the research area. Everything was happening just like on Earth. The planetary scientists are excited. The great river carried its waters, and its delta was located in the research area. The crater was completely filled with water, then it receded, and the wind, along with sharp temperature fluctuations, began their destructive work. These natural processes are well known to geologists here on Earth. During its journey, the rover regularly collects soil samples. This means that at least the fossils, namely the ancient Mars Paleontological Archive, are already on board the spacecraft. The only problem is that the rover itself is not capable of analyzing them. It just collects the samples. Another spacecraft has to come and pick them up. The launch of this mission is planned not by NASA specialists, but by their European colleagues. The launch was originally planned for 2026, but then it was pushed back to 2028. If there are no further delays, the soil will arrive on Earth only in 2033. And of course, a lot can still change. So, what do we really know about the geological history of the Red Planet? Surprisingly, quite a bit. About 4 billion years ago, Mars was a planet of possibilities. Life there was uncomfortable, but the conditions were quite suitable. Constant meteorite impacts led to the formation of lakes and giant rivers. However, every time water resources appeared, a new meteorite would come along and change the landscape again. 3 billion years ago, the meteorite bombardment nearly stopped, but local volcanoes became active. They transformed at least a third of the planet's surface. The eruptions were accompanied by the release of greenhouse gases, which led to a rise in temperature and an increase in the amount of water. During that time, Mars experienced frequent floods and deluges. 2 billion years ago, Mars' climate changed. It started to cool down, and glaciers appeared. Liquid water froze and disappeared beneath the surface. Despite the rare episodes of warming, Mars has remained as it was 2 billion years ago, and it still is today. This brief overview shows that Mars is indeed older than Earth. Everything that happened on Mars happened a long time ago. Meanwhile, similar processes are still happening on Earth. However, this past spans billions of years. So, there's been enough time for even intelligent life to develop. But why does the planet's surface look so deserted? Why don't we see any cities? A recent study showed that if our civilization were to disappear, future geologists would have a hard time finding any traces of it in the fossil record. Geological processes mix and compress sedimentary layers hundreds of millions of years old. And after billions of years, they are completely destroyed. Therefore, discovering ancient Martian cities will not be easy. But it would be nice to at least find some shells. This discovery would radically change our understanding of life, as it would prove the existence of life forms that developed independently from those on Earth. The truth is, we'll have to wait a long time. Stay tuned, and you'll find out what other discoveries scientists have made on the red planet. Aliens on Mars. A supposed landing site of a spacecraft has been found on Mars. A trench left by a large disc-shaped object was spotted on the surface of the red planet by a virtual explorer known by the nickname WowFacts 2012. He used Google Mars for his searches. The trench is really unusual. Such indentations are formed when an object strikes the Earth at a certain angle. The author of the discovery believes that this trench was created as a result of a rough landing of a flying saucer. He believes that the alien ship landed, leaving a semicircular imprint at the edge of the trench, but managed to take off again, which is why the object itself isn't there anymore. The only reasonable explanation is that this trench was created by a natural object. It's unlikely that it was an asteroid or a meteorite, since they move at high speeds and usually fall vertically, leaving impact craters. But a fragment from one of Mars' moons could have left a mark like that. The scientists' theory about the alien spacecraft. Recently, scientists from the University of California, Berkeley, predicted that in about 40 million years, Phobos, one of Mars' moons, will break apart due to the planet's gravity. Part of Phobos will break apart into small pieces and dust, which will form a ring around Mars in about a month. This will make the red planet look like Saturn. The lead researcher, Dr. Benjamin Black, assures that the Martian ring will last for about 100 million years, after which its debris will start falling onto the planet's surface. Larger fragments of Phobos will descend slowly, leaving distinctive oval marks. Dr. Black and his colleagues reported that they had already seen similar traces on Mars. This could suggest that Mars once had more moons that broke apart, forming rings and debris that have already fallen onto the planet. Could it be that WowFacts 2012 actually found evidence of one of those fragments falling? But where's the actual fragment? In this context, the theory about a spacecraft seems more plausible. Stay tuned, and you'll find out when life was first discovered on Mars. You're going to be shocked. How was life found on Mars? In the mid-20th century, American scientist Gilbert Levin developed an innovative method for detecting harmful microbes in water, food, and other environments. His radioisotope method involved adding a small amount of radioactive compounds to the material being studied and observing the reaction. If there were bacteria in the environment, they would start absorbing these compounds and releasing radioactive gas, which was easy to detect. NASA specialists showed interest in this method and suggested that the young scientists use it to check Mars for sterility. A talented engineer began preparing the famous Viking spacecraft to tackle the challenge of the century. The first spacecraft, Viking 1, landed on the red planet on July 20, 1976, July 5, 1976, and then came Viking 2, which landed on September 3rd of the same year. It's important to note that the spacecraft were in different locations. The first one was on the Chryse Planitia, in the Western Hemisphere, and the second was on the Utopia Planitia, much further east and north. Both spacecraft conducted Dr. Levin's experiment. They placed nutrients labeled with the radioactive isotope carbon-14 on the Martian soil, intended for potential bacteria. The first Viking placed the food in a sunny spot, while the second one put it in the shade, under a rock. These manipulations were repeated several times. The results turned out to be positive in both locations. 4 out of the first 6 tests showed the beginning of metabolic processes. About 20 years later, Mars was visited by Mars Pathfinder, which confirmed that the climate on the red planet used to be warmer and wetter. Meanwhile, on Earth, black smokers were discovered. These are hydrothermal vents, around which microorganisms successfully survived in extreme conditions. Levin, along with another researcher, Barry de Gregorios, published a book titled Mars, the Living Planet. The scientists argued that all possible chemical explanations are convincing. The living planet. The scientists claimed that all possible chemical explanations are convincing. However, the scientific community met these findings with skepticism. Amazing discoveries in the 21st century. In 2004, the Mars rover Opportunity arrived on Mars and sent this photo back to Earth. The media compared these balls to rain mushrooms, but NASA preferred the analogy with berries, specifically blueberries. However, they emphasized that this was done solely for associative convenience, since in fact, as the space agency claimed, these objects consist of a mineral called hematite, or red iron ore, which is a type of iron ore. The most interesting discoveries were made by the Curiosity rover, which was launched to the Red Planet in 2016. What was that? Could it be hematite too? Or did a screw come loose on the rover? It's also worth mentioning the Martian formations that strongly resemble Earth's stromatolites. Unusual structures created by cyanobacteria. The Viking flight will turn 50 years old in 2026. Life on Earth goes on as usual. Regular folks look at mushrooms and screws with curiosity, and sometimes even horror. Well-informed skeptics keep at it, despite new research and fresh evidence of life on Mars. New data collected from detailed observations by rovers on the surface of the Red Planet are helping scientists gradually uncover the mysteries of Mars' enigmatic past. In the end, they will eventually be able to find out if there was ever life there. Hey friends, I have an interesting offer for you. You have a unique opportunity to become part of our team. If you have video editing skills, can voice over videos in Russian, English, and other languages, or if you write interesting scripts, we would be happy to work with you. Message our Telegram bot. The link is in the description. That's all for today. See you later, everyone.